Hey, everybody, welcome back to the GOAT Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Neander. It's NFL Draft Night 2020. I'm joined by a couple of friends and fellow fantasy football league mates. Here on my right, we've got Mike McNaughton. Mike, say hello to everybody.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
All right, and then we've got Mr. Jeff Hussain. What's going on, Jeff? How you doing tonight?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome, man. I'm glad. Hey, listen, I'm sure we're all just, starved for not only sports, but content, entertainment, anything, right, to keep us going right now. I'm freaking psyched.
So bad. So I took up smoking again.
Yeah, we're all trying to find new hobbies. Probably not the best one to pick back up. I started painting. I figured that's a little healthier, but we'll go from there. That's all right though. That's all right. So yeah, I'm pretty psyched for draft night. It's probably the most informed and educated I've been on draft night, partially because of quarantine. Also just because of I feel like the rising impact of rookies in fantasy in their first years over the last 5 or 6 years. You have so many first-year guys making a big impact, not just a kind of a small impact. So I'm trying to pay more attention. I've got nothing but time on my hands, so I'm pretty well studied up this year, and I made some predictions. I think you guys have an idea of what you think is going to go on tonight, or at least where you think or hope teams should go. So hopefully we'll have some fun. We're going to talk about picks as they come, picks as they go, what we agree with, what we don't, and what impact we think they're going to have for fantasy. Because that's what we're talking about. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about the NFL teams and how that impacts them. But really, if a team goes 1-15 and their guy leads me to a fantasy championship, that's all I care about. So
Right.
I'll take that every single season. So we're almost there. We got Roger Goodell talking now on our feed. Should be a few minutes away from kind of opening it up. It's a weird format here. So let me ask you guys, over under, one team has their pick totally screwed up and throws this thing into a wrench. You see that happening, or you think they're ready to go? Mike, you see anybody totally screwing the pooch tonight?
Well, I think if you're talking a team screwing it up, I think you're going to have multiple. I mean, look at some of the general managers you have in this league and some of their track record. But I think if you're talking about maybe if there's some hiccup with the virtual setup or anything like that, look, I bet they've tested it, retested it, and tested it again. I'm sure that the NFL, with everything that's riding on this, did their homework. So I'll go ahead and take the under on that. I think we're going to have a pretty seamless evening.
Jeff, you think we're going to have like Dolphins at number 5 where the clock's going down, all of a sudden the pick doesn't come in, and then they're like, oh, no, we didn't pick Tua. I swear, we didn't pick Tua.
Absolutely. With all the new FaceTiming technical issues, we're bound to run into some problems tonight with some teams not making a pick in time, not knowing they were on the clock. You name it. I mean, we could have another Minnesota situation again.
Mike Tice.
Yeah.
I tell you, I mean, for me, I'm thinking with how poor security it seems like all of these video messaging things have, I'm worried about foreign interference in our NFL draft. That's the biggest problem. I'm telling you. You know what I mean? That's right.
Russia's going to meddle in the draft.
So we'll see. We'll see who they pick for somebody, who they're going to take in this draft. I think it's interesting to watch out for. But no, I think it's an interesting thing, right? Because you've heard different things about different franchises and how they're going about this. Some people have like a whole team in probably their estate. I mean, if you're an owner or, you probably have an estate or a compound more than a house. And so you can probably social distance 35 times over and still have your IT guys in the East Wing, while you're working in the West Wing. But then you hear about like Jerry Jones. Supposedly Jerry Jones is alone in his house with the full reins to make the picks. So that's what I heard. That's what I read today. I mean, that's crazy. So, I mean, I think you might see some interesting reaches from Dallas in this draft if that's true. Because I think that the pressure, I don't care if you're a billionaire, you're on the clock and there's a minute on the clock, you start feeling things, And I think it's going to be 20 picks.
So you're telling me there's a possibility that Dallas could pull a Mike Ditka and trade the entire draft for one guy?
For Ricky Williams.
Yeah. Just paid Amari Cooper. He'll give him the guaranteed money and then trade him, for nothing today.
Right.
It'll be something pretty good.
I would like to make one guarantee. Cleveland will win the offseason. Again, like they do every year.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty good money. That's pretty safe money, I think. This year, I mean, they were probably intelligently quiet in all ways except for coaching. But I don't want to get off the rails here and go into Cleveland seasons. We're probably going to get pretty close here. But I do think in the offseason, hopefully Cleveland this year wins the offseason in the draft by being intelligent and not being flashy and going for foundation players. I think a lot of mock drafts have them taking an offensive lineman, and I think that's exactly where they need to go.
It is.
Both seem to be in agreement with that. So it seems to make sense, right? You got Chubb, he's dominant. You have a quarterback you want to protect, and you want to have, I think more than anything, Baker needs confidence. Go ahead, Jeff. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying more than anything, I think Baker needs confidence. I feel like he's the kind of quarterback that runs off that confidence, that I don't want to say cockiness, but that feeling of things are going good and I can stick it in your face, And I think a great offensive line is going to go a long way to doing that for him. So I'll be very shocked if they don't go offensive lineman. I think they're a pick 10, I think. So we'll see from there.
Go ahead and say it. Cockiness, arrogance. Listen, you show me a top-tier quarterback that's ever played in this league that's not arrogant or cocky, doubtful. You know what I mean? These guys are they're the cream of the crop, and they know it, and they don't mind letting you know it too. And it's just a trait that most of them have. They just carry a little bit of that arrogance with them, that chip on their shoulder. It's what makes them great.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, perception just comes to how you are in front of the mic, right? You can be that way for real. You can be that way on the field, in the locker room, in real life. And then, if you say the right things in the interviews and on the mic, you don't get that tag, as being that guy. But yeah, just like I always say with competitiveness, right? I think if you're going to be a kind of person that gets that elite level of competition, you'd probably, cheat your mom in a game of Go Fish. Just because you want to win, what I mean?
Right.
Cheating ain't trying, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
But I will see there's a lot of interesting teams, going here. We got a lot of interesting storylines in the first round. Some teams with no picks, and that's because you got some teams that are loaded up. You got Miami with 3 picks in the first round, Vegas with 2. Some other teams just have some interesting holes to fill. And when you look at the draft, as far as the talent, it seems to be kind of top-heavy skill position-wise in quarterback and wide receiver especially. And then you kind of move to pass rushers and edge rushers and top-flight offensive linemen. There's also a pretty good cornerback draft as well. I think this is going to be one of the big drafts where you get to see are teams drafting the need or the best player available, because there's really a lot of ways to go. A lot of teams are going to be put in that position, I think, this draft of are you picking your need or are you picking the best player available if you're at 4 or 7. Some of these teams have a decision to make. So are there any teams that you kind of have singled out that you think are really going to pick a player that fits that one obvious glaring need that we see? Or do you think that a lot of teams are going, straight best player on the board? Jeff, what do you think about these guys?
Well, I think that they obviously have their own draft boards made up, right? And depending on who falls to them on their personal draft boards, they're going to take that particular player. Now, if a player falls, there's no reason why they won't take the best player available. But we're going to have to wait and see how these picks fall before we can even make a real educated guess. Because right now, I couldn't tell you who's going where. I've heard many different scenarios with who goes first, who goes fifth. But to your point, we are loaded up this year with wide receivers and cornerbacks and offensive and defensive linemen. So I think teams will have a chance to both get the best player available and fill their respective needs this season. But the draft will play itself out, and we'll see what they do.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you're going to see a choice, because I think a lot of these top guys are going to go. You're going to see 2 or 3 offensive linemen go, maybe in the first 15 picks, right?
Yep.
And then you're looking at receivers like Judy and Lamb, and you're at 12, 13, and I think those are, for me, going to be the best players available, when you get to 11, 12, and that's where I have Lamb at 11 for the Jets. I've got Judy at 12 for the Raiders. But I think you're still going to have guys like Mekhi Becton, and Andrew Thomas available at those spots. And those could be cornerstones for a decade where, the receivers may not pan out. I mean, I just never see receivers as a guarantee. There's so much talent at that position overall and people that pop up. I think you're going to see the lack of a meeting season because we haven't had those personal meet and greets with players, for coaches to really get that, that feeling just of a player.
They had that back at the combine.
Yeah, probably to a small degree, but even back then at the combine, they probably weren't expecting to not have any time with players at this point. Oh man! So I'm looking at Zach Taylor. Are you guys watching this?
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but we got Zach Taylor at some kind of makeshift desk with a well put together Bengals logo sheet behind him.
Who Dey?
right now. Let me tell you. Right now, I see one less screen in his screen than I have in mine. I've got 4 devices up. I only have 3 in his. So I'm already winning the war room against Zach Taylor. All right. Well,
in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I'll bet you Goodell's not going to miss all these hugs that he gets.
Oh, having a bro hug and chest bump everybody? Yeah.
He's going to dap him up and all that. But I always wondered, did he really get to know these players that well that they became like soul brothers?
I doubt it.
No,
I know, right? But they all act like, oh yeah, and the way he acts too, he's like, oh yeah, I know, we got a special handshake going already,
This is money in the bank just in case you get that positive test or you get that arrest. Put in the bank that you can with the man, ahead of time, so you're ready to rock. So I don't have my volume up. I don't know what Roger Goodell's talking about. I don't know if either of you guys have any volume up or hear what he's saying. No. Looks like the same shit going. Listen, we're all looking forward to getting to normal. We all want to get back to what we want to do, but let's all be safe, yada, yada. The same shit we've been hearing from everybody. I'm good with this.
No doubt.
Duke Tobin. All right. Who's that dude in the other side of the room, man?
Director of Player Personnel.
No, that's his son doing projections over there. I guarantee. He's doing.
I love how they have the Bengals fans putting bags on over their head because
I'm laughing at.
It's so appropriate. I mean, I remember in the 80s I saw them do that, even though they went to the Super Bowl a couple times.
It was the Saints that started that. The Saints started that.
Yeah, no, they started it, but I remember the Bengals doing it too. I mean.
Oh yeah, the Rams did it when they were in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Same old sorry ass Rams.
We're on the clock here. We're on the clock. 9 minutes, 11 seconds left. So it said 29 seasons since the Bengals have won a playoff game. I assume that would have been my man Icky Woods doing the shuffle around '1. I hope that was my favorite Bengals team. Boomer Esiason made me want to be a lefty when I was like 8. And I just thought it was cool, man.
I saw a highlight clip of Boomer the other day, and man, boy, he could whip it down the field.
Oh yeah, he was a good quarterback. Look, those Bengals teams were good.
Yeah.
And then after that, they just had a run of just poor picks and bad picks. But one statistic I heard yesterday that was very interesting was that since I can't remember when it was, since the merger, I think they said that the Bengals are the only team that have drafted 3 quarterbacks that have played more than 100 games for the Bengals. So They're the only team that have done that 3 times. So I guess they're trying to say that their picks do actually pan out sometimes. Thing is, the only ones that I can remember really panning out to me would be, Boomer Esiason and Carson Palmer. Because
Andy Dalton is going to be the 3rd quarterback, right?
Well, and he is, but I'm saying if you look at Andy Dalton's career, like we're football fans. I mean, we watch it just as much as everybody or anybody at that point. But I mean, I don't look at Andy Dalton's career as a success. Taking him in the mid rounds. Yeah, he's played a lot of games, but they haven't won anything.
Yeah.
So I mean, they haven't even. When was the last time they won a playoff game?
At 29.
That was what Jim mentioned about Icky Shuffle.
Longest streak in the
Right.
NFL, 29 years. So moving to today's quarterback situation, right? So, everyone thinks they're going quarterback number one. They think they're going Joe Burrow, and until something changes, I still think that's going to be the way they go. Are they going to get themselves out of this mire? They have good skill players, right? I mean, AJ Green, if he's 80% of AJ Green from 2 years ago, he's still a top, 15 kind of wide receiver. Tyler Boyd showed big strides. John Ross, I think, can be very good as a third wide receiver. He's your number 3. Yeah, I don't know what they did about tight end, but I love the weapons here. I guess my question is, right now they haven't gotten rid of Andy Dalton. There's really not a market for quarterbacks right now, right? Newton's out there, Winston's out there, Dalton's out there, guys like Bortles. There's quarterbacks with experience and success on the free agent market right now. And Andy Dalton's still a Cincinnati Bengal. So if the Cincinnati Bengals draft Joe Burrow right now, you tell me who's the week 1 quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, Mike McNaughton, who's week 1 for Cincinnati as of right now, if they draft Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I still think it's Andy Dalton. Maybe that comes down to
he wins the training camp battle.
Exactly. And I mean, if for no other reason, then look at the amount of. I mean, I know that the coach at the Bengals, Zach Taylor, he hasn't been there very long, but Andy Dalton still has more time in his system than Joe Burrow does. And so getting into a training camp battle with not only a guy who's been in the system, albeit for a short amount of time, but you're talking about a veteran. I mean, Andy Dalton's been around for a while. So he knows how training camps are. He's prepared. He knows how to work at an NFL level. Andy Dalton's the starter come day one. And I think a little bit of that plays into kind of how I feel about Joe Burrow, too. I'm not a huge Joe Burrow guy. No. So I don't see him. I understand the numbers he put up at LSU, but look, that was the same offense and the same players that the year before he wasn't that great and they weren't winning games. So those are my questions. Is he as good as what those massive numbers he put up last year are? And then think about this. Yeah, he's got AJ Green. He's got some weapons at Cincinnati, but he's not going to have the difference-making offensive line that he had at LSU, and he's not going to have the difference in talent. When Cincinnati goes and plays Pittsburgh, they're not going to out-talent Pittsburgh. They're not going to out-talent Baltimore. So that's where, to me, the problem comes in.
So aren't you making an argument for them not to draft?
Oh, I certainly – listen, I've said it before. I don't buy either one of these two quarterbacks as top 5 picks. Again, that's just me.
All right. That's I kind of agree with you as well.
I think we all know. I think but yeah, you still got to. Do you still feel like they're going to draft a quarterback, whether or not you think it's the best thing? Is that how you see it going right now? We got 4 minutes on the.
As long as this pick is taken, I'm assuming that they may be thinking of something else right now. I mean, if you were going to go take the quarterback, why are we at 3 minutes and 50 seconds left on the clock? Why haven't you called up your quarterback and said, "Hey, buddy, welcome to the team"?
That's what I was going to say. It's hard to argue that. I mean, like you said, I was looking up at it. I don't know if you noticed, but Jeff, when you were talking, I took a quick glance up when it was at about 6:50, and I thought, if you've been set on this guy for the better part of the last 2 months,
exactly,
how am I still sitting here with, almost 4 minutes off the clock and you haven't made that pick?
Here's why. Because, the reports came out, and I didn't hear the details, but the reports came out that Miami offered a pretty decent package. We know Miami has 14 picks in this draft, 5 in the first 2 rounds. They've already made big matches in free agency. I think Cincinnati's just waiting to milk them dolphin teats as much as they can and see what they get.
Pick is in, guys. The pick is in.
Oh, all right.
All right, let's see what we got.
So go Burrow.
Well, I think they're just talking about him. They've been doing a little bit of a thing. I think
the timing just happened. They were showing his Heisman speech when the pick came in.
Yeah, and I think when they make the pick, they'll probably plaster it up there and put it on the bottom line.
All right, what did they used to do though? They used to give him an envelope like the Oscars. I don't remember what they did when the pick was in. What happened? Goodell just walked to the side and then walked back out?
Yeah, he was always kind of off to the side, and I think they would hand him a little, like you said, little envelope that he'd go out and open
fucking
and read.
Post-it note. Fucking here you go.
Yeah, and Jeff, that's I know you said you tend to agree. That's just my feeling on these quarterbacks. I don't see, Joe Burrow. We're not talking about, and I understand he has escapability, and the numbers were absolutely gaudy at LSU the last season. He set some records, but again, nothing that he does is anything like. I mean, it's stuff that we've seen before. He doesn't do anything like Pat Mahomes where we're going, okay, that's a little bit on a different level. I've never seen that. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't do it's all stuff that we've seen before, and that just leads me to believe that he's just another quarterback who had a great season. Look at the guys that he beat out for putting up these massive numbers. I mean, David Klingler and Colt McCoy. I mean, who cares? Those guys didn't put up numbers.
Here we go. Here we go.
Here we go.
Yep. Joe Burrow.
Okay.
It's done. All right. So we've already been talking about it, so we're going to move on pretty quick from here to Washington. But pick is in. It's Burrow. That's it. It's done. So first quarterback off the board. There's no trade. Now we're looking forward to Miami. We're looking forward to what happens with Tua and Herbert and trades. So we already talked about, Burrow a little bit. We both think, or all of us think, that at this moment, Andy Dalton will probably be the week 1 starter. So for fantasy purposes, for me, to start the year, which I always want to get off to a big start, I like the weapons better with Dalton as the week 1 starter for the first half of the season than I would if Burrow was there. I have more confidence in Boyd, Green, and Mixon than I would if it was Burrow starting.
Well, I absolutely agree. I mean, obviously he has history and chemistry with all these players, and Joe Burrow's coming in. It was a brand new player to the NFL. I mean, he's going to have some growing pains. That's why I totally believe Andy Dalton wins the job and is a day 1 starter. Obviously, injuries could change that. So.
Yeah. Right. And look, he's got a rapport with the offensive line. The offensive line knows how to block for Andy Dalton. They know how to set his pocket. They know how he steps up in the pocket. There's a lot of different things that Andy Dalton is just going to have an immediate advantage. And oh, by the way, he's a veteran. He knows how to play at that level. Joe Burrow doesn't.
All right. So let's move on to this number 2 pick, Washington Redskins. Listen, they drafted Haskins, right, in the first round. In theory, that was a different regime, right? So you always hear that, kind of viewpoint. That might be a reason why they want to make a change. You also hear they might have made a mistake. Haskins didn't look great. He showed some progress near the end of the season there, but it was pretty rough going once he got, on the field. So do either of you think that Washington is going to go quarterback here? Let's start with that question very quick. Mike, you think they might go quarterback here?
No, I don't. I think if you skip on somebody like Chase Young, that's a mess. You're going to have a lot of explaining to do for skipping on a guy like that. He comes out very similarly to the Bosa brothers, an immediate impact player. He's done it for several years at Ohio State. He did it against some of the best offensive linemen in the country at the time. He's done it on the big stage. You go Chase Young here. It fills a need. It's the best player on the board at number 2. I mean, it checks all the boxes. You go quarterback here. I think it's a big mistake, and you haven't really given Dwayne Haskins an opportunity. And like you said, if you don't believe in Dwayne Haskins and you're looking for a bridge, go get yourself one of those free agents. Let them play for a year or so until you get your guy, and then you move on. But Chase Young could be there for a long time and be very effective.
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, you seem to agree. You're nodding your head when he was saying that you don't, see them going past Chase Young. So you see that being the pick?
I do see that being the pick. Obviously, this is a situation where you do take the best available player, regardless of your need, because his talent is that exceptional. It's so hard to find those Khalil Macks or Jadeveon Clowneys or Watts out there that
Yeah.
just can take on a double team and win.
Right.
Some
Well,
situations,
you know.
exactly where he's going to present offensive problems or scheme problems for the offensive line, to where not only will he demand a double team, but he's going to be able to free up other players to make plays on their own and get to the quarterback. So
Sure.
yeah, I have to agree with Mike 100%. This is the player they have to take.
Well, they didn't take much time. The pick is in. It's going to be another minute or so till we get announced, but the pick is in. I think the interesting thing here for me is Trent Williams, because he's not going to be in Washington. They've already basically agreed to ship him out. Someone's going to give him probably not a first rounder at this point, just because of the leverage that Williams has, having sat out a year and whatever. But I do see them, if they want to get a quarterback to compete. Keenum's already gone, so he's already out of town. They need another quarterback, and someone that has an ability at least can, whether it's a veteran or a rookie, can come in there and show something. So I do see them maybe shipping off Trent Williams, getting a second-round pick, plus either a veteran quarterback and or using that pick.
I'm glad you mentioned veteran quarterback, because I see it's more likely they take the young and then pick up a Jameis Winston or a Cam Newton to come in and be competition for Haskins.
Kyle Allen, but I really think that was just like a Ron Rivera. Hey, I know this guy. I feel comfortable bringing him into the fold. Just a comfort pick. I really feel like they didn't pay him a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if they're going to go away from Chase Young here. I think that the only reasons I could think them doing that would be to trade. I can't see them picking another player. If someone offers a bankroll for this number 2 pick, though, I can totally see them taking it, because they can turn this into a couple of high picks and Trent Williams into a couple of high picks. And all of a sudden you can make a huge impact, with the core of your team in a short time, with 2 pieces turning into 4.
And he's that good of a player to trade up for that.
Yeah. The one thing too, as far as the quarterback situation, that I would also maybe look into with Washington, Alex Smith is still on that roster. So I know he had the catastrophic injury. There's, doubts as if he's ever going to play again. But, you're still carrying him on the roster. And if you're talking about a mentor or somebody like that for Dwayne Haskins, you already have that in your locker room. If you're looking for somebody who can play, now we're talking about Jameis Winston and somebody like that. And Jeff, I saw that look on your face.
Well, because I don't think he's going to get back on the field.
Right, but a lot of times when you need a mentor for a young player, and especially a young quarterback, you need a guy to teach him how to be a professional quarterback, which doesn't necessarily mean what he can do on the field. And look, they're 2 different style players. I don't know how Alex Smith would really ever help Dwayne Haskins, because Dwayne Haskins is a more pure pocket guy, so. But
here we go. Hold on, he's on the phone. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
no, you're good.
Phone. Dude, that dude's workout outfit on the other side there is from like 1989. It should be an Everlast. I feel like I might have had that shit.
He's got the super tight sweatpants on.
Oh,
That's good.
And I don't want to be that guy. I assume that's his father in the picture. That's nice, actually, that he's got him there with him for that, I guess, if that's what it is.
It's probably right.
Yeah. I wish I could hear it now, because now I probably sound like a jerk, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, that's right.
Everlast. It's been a long time since I heard Everlast.
Civil War era painting of a Washington Redskins logo. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Well,
here we go.
There you go.
That was weird. All right, here we go.
Yep. Chase Young.
All right. From Ohio State. There we go.
Yeah, and the pick that's the right pick. I mean,
it is the right pick.
Yeah, I mean, listen, how many times have we seen these teams that don't have number 1, you're in the top 5, and they overthink it, right? You reach for something, you trade, you do something stupid, instead of just taking the guy that's right there in front of you. That's what San Francisco did. It got him into a Super Bowl with taking one of the Bosas. I mean, again, you don't have to overthink it when you got a guy like Chase Young staring you in the face.
Yeah. So, we all like the pick. Washington needs a lot of pieces. We all know that. I mean, they need a lot of pieces, but Ron Rivera is the kind of guy that can get them moving in the right direction, make a few right picks free agency, make a few picks draft.
It made sense because Ron Rivera is a defensive coach too.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, Jim, you just hit on something else as a part of that pick. Remember, Washington is not just one player away. They're multiple players away from competing for championships and even for the playoffs. So you take the best guy out there that gives you an opportunity to be competitive, who can stick around for a while you build that team.
Yeah.
All right, so we're moving on to Detroit. I mean, why is there only 3 minutes 45 seconds? I feel like every pick, it's all of a sudden lower and lower every time I look.
Well, as soon as the pick is in,
right,
the clock starts.
Right.
For the other team.
All right, yeah, because it was like 5 minutes after the pick was in.
It took them 5 minutes to announce the pick.
Yeah, all right. So this is probably the team that had the biggest, the rumors about the trade, right? Because the thought was that Miami might move up to 3 to get Tua. If they really love Tua, they have the draft capital trade, they might do that. Do you see Detroit trading this pick? Would you bet on that, or do you think they're going to keep it?
I think they're going to keep it. I don't think that anyone's going to offer them enough that they feel that it's worth their time to trade away. But they're down to 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So,
well, most people, most mock drafts have them picking the cornerback Jeff Okudah. I haven't seen that much tape on him. I've seen a little bit, but cornerback seems like an obvious pick for them. They let Darius Slay go to the Eagles in the offseason. Didn't want to pay him the big money. Now you can get a possible replacement caliber guy of Darius Slay, on the cheap for the next 3-4 years, whatever it is. So I do think cornerback makes sense for the Lions if they keep the pick. I think it's very possible Miami pulls the trigger and makes the trade and picks Tua here. I know Mike's very against that. Jeff seems against that also.
I think he'll be there at 5.
The pick is in for the Lions, so the Lions have kept the pick and they have turned that in.
Well, we don't know.
It's in. I'll be right back.
Don't be surprised if this is somebody like Derek Brown.
Yeah.
Derek Brown from Auburn is an absolute game wrecker. Don't be surprised with Matt Patricia up there if he stacks that defensive line, even after going out and picking up the pass rusher. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank here from New England that they paid $91 million for. Don't be surprised if this is somebody like Derek Brown to bolster that defensive line. But I think Jeff Okudah is definitely the best corner in the draft. I think he's a lockdown corner in coverage. He can come up and play the run. He's very physical, but he doesn't get beat over the top very much. He's got good recovery speed. I think he's definitely the best corner in the draft, but don't be surprised if Detroit throws us a little curveball here and goes with somebody like Derek Brown.
I can totally see that happening.
Yeah, and look, that defensive front, that was probably the toughest game that the LSU offense had last year was against Auburn. They won that game 23-20, but Derek Brown and his defensive line mate, Marlon, I'm drawing a blank there too, Davison, they were in the backfield all game long. So let's see what it is.
But Detroit's already paid a little bit for the line.
There you go, guys.
So, let's see.
Jeff Okudah.
Yeah, just all the mocks have been pretty on point so far. I thought they'd trade that pick, but listen, like I said, it makes sense. Slay is gone. Great move for Philly. This makes sense for Detroit to reload that backfield on the cheap. So.
Well, and look at who your coach is in Detroit, and then look at the division that you play in. So you play in a division where that teams are going to want to throw the football. You've got Aaron Rodgers. You've got Matt. Well, you have Mitch Trubisky, but you also have Kirk Cousins. You know these teams want to throw the football. So it makes sense. You got a defensive coach. You needed a corner. I think it's a smart pick. And how many times have we said that about Detroit throughout the years? That's a smart pick.
Yeah, and another team with a lot of need, and really they don't have them. They don't have them on the skill side. I mean, listen, we know Stafford's a question mark, but they weren't going to spend a first-round pick on a quarterback with Stafford in the contract. So, Stafford being a question mark, maybe you get a third, fourth-round quarterback. Maybe one of these guys, Jacob Fromm, the other Jacob, who was it, Esau from Georgia? Yeah. They might go that route. But you got Marvin Jones still. You got Galladay looks great. Carry on injury questions, but they got Hawkinson also. So defense had to be the pick for Detroit. It was just a question of where they were going to go. I think this was the right way. I don't think they would have made a wrong move unless they would have went outside of defense. So yeah, I'm good with it. I'm totally good with it. And if he turns out to be a lockdown corner, every year there's only maybe 4 of those in the league, 5 of those. And every year or two, 1 or 2 drop off that list because they're really not there anymore. Jalen Ramsey, I'm looking at you, and guys like that. Right? And then 2 other guys jump on that list, right? Tre'Davious White is right in the middle of his. I'm a Buffalo guy, right? White is right in the middle of his lockdown spot. We probably got 2-3 more years of him being that true lockdown corner, and then you're going to start to see just a tiny little decline. So if Okudah is that good, I think it's worth the pick. So looking forward to the Giants here, 6 minutes on the clock. Jeff, Mike and I were talking about Isaiah Simmons, who we both projected the Giants to pick. Now, he is this hybrid tweener linebacker out of Clemson, I think.
Yes, Clemson.
And, me and Mike were talking about how there's so much potential in that, kind of tweener hybrid spot, but there's also so much risk, right? Will they fit in? If he plays linebacker, will he get overpowered? If he's a safety, will he be too slow? Or will he have the perfect fit and be an absolute, kind of game changer at one of those positions? Do you see them going this way? I think they might go offensive lineman. I went back and forth a couple of times.
I'm thinking offensive lineman myself. Looks all the needs have them either taking a tackle or a guard. Most likely a tackle.
Yeah, I think that the tackles that are available too in this draft, I don't know that you can whiff with the high picked offensive linemen that everybody has discussed. I just if you look at Jedrick Wills, Tristan Wirfs, Mekhi Becton, these guys are all studs. They can all play. They're going to be really good, I think. So I don't know that you can go wrong. And Jeff, to your point, they need offensive line. I mean, that offensive line was bad, and there's a lot of work to be done there. So I just have a feeling that you could be right. The reason I think Isaiah Simmons is the pick though is we're dealing with Dave Gettleman here, and he loves these. He loves these guys that flash and come out and they have these huge combine numbers and they jump off the screen at you. He loves those guys. And he's already got his guy on the offensive side of the ball that does that in Saquon Barkley. Now he may be looking for the guy on the other side of the ball that's like that. So, look,
good. He wants to play legend ball, right? He wants to make all the glory picks. He wants to have all those big impacts. He's that
That's
guy,
right.
He's going to make all those things. Like Isaiah Simmons, if he's the next Lawrence Taylor in the way that he changes the way a position is played, right, or the way defense is played, then it goes down as, an amazing pick. I think Gettleman is shown. Huh?
Is he that good?
Well, I don't know. I actually go the other way.
I do too.
I think it's higher risk to pick this kind of a guy. I think at the NFL level, I don't want to be in between positions. It takes the perfect defensive coordinator and scheme to get the most out of that person, I think, than to not. Right? Like, you're going to tell me that Isaiah Simmons is going to line up against Gronk and guard him? Gronk just Whittle, I can box him out. I think a lot of these big tight ends can box a guy like him out on the, if they're going to play coverage. I also think that wide receivers will burn him if he's going to play that third wide receiver out in deep center field as a safety. I don't see that working out well either. So I think it's a dangerous pick. I like offensive line for them, but I did go with Simmons because I do think Gettleman is that home run type guy that, he's in the rough 210 yards away. He grabs his 3-wood.
I'm going for it. Yeah.
That's it.
He's going to pull the tin cup.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The other thing too, I'm not a fan of this idea of these tweener players. And I, a lot of people, I've heard people talking about all week, the NFL has changed and, there's always a room for a guy with this sort of athleticism. Listen, let's not sugarcoat it here. When you get to the NFL level, all these guys can run. All these guys are physical. All these guys are athletes. Let's just stop now with the idea that something that Isaiah Simmons can do is something that nobody's ever seen in the history of this game. So, I don't like this idea that when I hear that, he could play linebacker, he could play safety. What that screams to me is that he doesn't have one position that he's great at. And if he doesn't have one position he's great at, I don't know where to use him. And that's a problem.
Yep. And we're down to a minute. So I think New York is really
pick is in.
Thinking about it right now. They're on it. A pick is in. All right, there we go. Pick is in. But offensive line, you got Danny Dimes, you got Saquon Barkley. I think you have to go offensive line as the smart move. I just don't trust them to make that move, but we're going to see.
Yeah. And it should be offensive linemen. It really should. But like I said, with this guy, with Dave Gettleman, you just don't know.
So I don't think there's any chance they move from this pick. I guess the rumors were that Gettleman was actually willing to move down from this pick. But, I just don't see it happening. It's not a valuable pick number. 4 in this draft just doesn't do it for other people's needs. There's no feature that they're going to take a quarterback. So Chargers have no need to worry about them at this point. The Lions could have been dangerous, but, they're out of the game now. So
exactly right. The only way that you were getting anybody to come up and take number 4 from you is if you wanted one of those 2 quarterbacks and didn't think they could get past 5 or 6. That's it. That's the only way you're jumping up there. If you're just behind those guys, I don't know. Again, I think this speaks a lot to how highly coveted some of these players are. I think the media covets some of these players more than the actual NFL and general managers do. And I think that kind of shows a lot. I mean, it's the same. We do the same thing every year where we say, oh, well, I think there's going to be 15 or 16 players from one conference taken. And it never happens. It never happens because the media values players differently from the way that NFL talent advisors, scouts, and general managers value talent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Giants are going to be a weird team only because the NFC East, again, is another one of those winnable divisions with 10 wins. Wins.
Certainly.
And that extra wild card team, very well could come from the East where they've been shut out a little bit lately where this number 2 team is not making it to the playoffs,
Sure.
Have a chance to get in. So I think New York's in a precarious position here where they have to, really, plant the right seeds to get this team to grow into a winning team. Saquon Barkley's going to need to be paid in 3 years or let go.
Here we go.
That's a pretty surprising pick to me, but it does fill a need. Andrew Thomas, tackle from Georgia.
Yep.
Hey, good on you. Guy from University of Georgia. Happy. I'm very happy.
He is a house of a human being. He is gigantic.
Yeah.
Again, it fits a need. He's a big-time recruit.
He's from
coming out of high school.
Yeah.
He was a big-time recruit coming out of high school. I watched a lot of Georgia football because of obviously where we're all located. But there's a good, he showed a lot of good things. He can be a road grader. I mean, he can get downhill and really tear some people up at the second level. he can really kind of control that run game. I think his footwork and pass pro is going to be one of the questions for him, but we'll see.
Hey, it looks here like he played for the band at Pace Academy, so I think he's got a little bit of rhythm. That helps with footwork a little bit. Get a little.
There you go.
Gotcha.
There you go. Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, I like the pick. Like I said, I think that's a smart move. I'm surprised they made the smart move, but I do think that was the way to go for them. He is a huge guy, and Saquon with his build,
the words right out of my mouth.
He'll disappear behind him, man. He's gonna run right behind him and be gone. I love that pick for him. So, I think we're all happy they made that move. That leaves more interesting picks for other people. Like I said, Isaiah Simmons just has that X factor that some people are looking for. That's going to make every next pick think about him. And they may or may not go with him. But every single team that's on the clock from now on has to think about passing up on a player that some people are saying could be a revolutionary defensive type player, that comes along once in a generation that changes the way defenses are played. So I don't buy into all that. I'm just saying they got to think about it because it's being said and they're on the clock, right? So, all right. So now we got the Dolphins. Big question mark here. In my draft, predictions, my latest one, I did have them going 2 at 5, and I have the Chargers going Herbert at 6. So
most experts don't have them taking Tua.
Who doesn't?
Very few of the experts.
Well, it's been going back and forth, a lot, obviously. I don't know. Today, I'm sure a lot of stuff changed today. I didn't watch that much today. But, Tua to the Dolphins has been, obviously one of the bigger storylines of the offseason just in general. And I think while there's always a lot of, talk and a lot of covert information being given just to try to muddy the waters, I think they're going to just take him here at 5 and get it over with. That's how I see it going. So, they're on the clock, 4 minutes left. It's easy to hypothesize, but, right now, do you think they're going to pick Tua or they're going another direction?
I think they're going to pick Tua.
Yeah.
I think it's a smart play. You've got so many picks. You can get a great quarterback and then follow that up with an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman in the first round alone.
Yeah. And listen, they pick again at 18, but that's a lot of picks away. 13 picks away for a franchise that needs a quarterback. They need a steady presence there. Ryan Tannehill looks like, maybe was the guy. He's just not there anymore. So they need to do a better job.
Live feed of Tua's home, and he's not on the phone. He's sitting there staring at the TV. So I don't know. Usually they got to get the phone call from the, you see him get on the phone. You're like, oh, something's going on.
Yeah,
that's what Drew Rosenhaus said about Willis McGahee that one year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting situation. I know that the whole idea coming into the season, a lot of people are pointing to the injuries, but I just think there's a lot for me that just does not work for Tua at the next level. Every time he gets a little bit of pressure, his mechanics go out the window. He throws off a bad platform, and you just can't do that at the NFL level. You're not Brett Favre. You're not Aaron Rodgers. It's hard to do.
Well, those aren't the comps. So what I'm hearing is one of the comps I've been hearing is you said Matt Leinart, which scarily I see a little bit of that. But one of the comps I see is Russell Wilson. And I don't know, how accurate it is, but I do see a lot of those traits where, Russell Wilson seems to lose mechanics at times, but makes plays happen. And there's just a clutch factor to Russell Wilson's gameplay.
Right, but some of those guys like a Russell Wilson have the ability to throw off a poor platform and still make something happen. I don't think that Tua can do that. And like I said before, he's not going to have the benefit of being able to out-talent people at the next level. I think that's going to be a problem. There's a lot of things. I heard about his laser quick release. I don't see it. His release looks very deliberate to me. So there's just a lot of different things that I see that I just don't agree with them when I look at Tua, and I'm just not buying it. I mean, it looks like maybe, the Dolphins are going to take him. The pick came in pretty quick, so maybe they feel real comfortable with that.
You say it right now. Jeff and I both said they draft Tua. You say they draft Tua or they go another direction?
Personally, for me, I think it would be a better idea for them to take an offensive lineman or a safer pick to keep building that team. But I think they're going to take Tua.
Yeah. I think they're going to go Tua. I think this draft. I think a big part of this draft is uncertainty because they haven't had those personal meetings, those personal workouts, a lot of those things they normally would have, and they have to go on their previous scouting, previous information. I do think they're going to kind of toe the line with their picks right now.
Tua to the Dolphins at 5.
He didn't say. Did he say it right?
Yeah. Well, it sounded like. Yeah, it sounded like he did.
I'm glad he didn't slide down a lot in the draft rankings because later in the day they would have been showing this, and all those leaves would have been on the ground. They would have been stomping the lays. It would have been an ugly scene if he didn't go. So I'm happy he went at 5. We didn't have to see all that happen. Here's the injury. So here's the injury history.
That was the hip injury. That was the hip injury last year.
Yep.
Which was pretty severe. It's not an injury that's easy to come back from. He does have the benefit, I think, of when it happened. So
like shades of Bo Jackson. Not that bad, obviously, but yeah.
Well, Bo Jackson was career-ending.
Yeah, it looked bad though. He looked bad. Look at this. I mean, here are the clips of him moving.
Yep.
Great movement, great quickness, great feet. I mean, I'm not a scout.
Right about that release. It's not as quick as everyone makes it out to be. It's very deliberate.
Yeah, I'm. And again, look how wide open that guy was. He just threw that past it.
Yeah, it was way over.
There's nobody within 5 yards of that player. And that's just not going to happen at the NFL level. Not very often. Look at that pocket he just threw from.
That throw was on the money. If that defender was right there, that throw was on the money. That guy could have been on his pocket.
Look at the pocket that he threw from in that Mississippi State game. And that highlight they just showed is against Troy.
Have you seen
if Alabama can't beat Troy, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Offensive line of doom that the Dolphins have?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Again, there's another throw.
Running roughshod.
There's another throw, and I get it. He throws a pass. Now, that pass that he threw, the one that they showed that went for a touchdown just now against LSU, that was in the fourth quarter when that game was out of control. That game was lost. So, and again, he had a hand in his
there was prevent defense.
Right. He had a hand in his face, and I get it. He lays that ball up there. But again, look at that receiver beat that corner. That's not going to happen at the NFL level. The amount of times with the frequency that it happened at Alabama, it's just not.
No, of course. But you can say that for almost every quarterback that comes from a big school that beats up on people all year long, right? I mean, you can say that about everybody that comes out of these big schools, and they beat up on people. That's what college football is, right? I mean, there's good games, and then they're beating the crap out of people, and there's still 5 touchdown games all in between.
Well, that's to Mike's point. That's why he mentions that is that they didn't play. The level of competition they played against was very weak.
Yeah, fair enough.
So in the NFL, everybody is top talent.
Yeah.
You don't have a weak off against.
The Dolphins are not going to be better talent-wise than most teams they play across the board. Position to position, player to player, depth to depth.
No, not like college.
No, of course not. Yeah, but we'll see. Like I said, I think a lot of this development. We'll see how the development goes with Tua. We got 4 minutes left on the clock for the Chargers, so we'll move to them quickly. I have them going with Herbert. Mike, you had them going with Herbert also, even though you didn't have Tua going before him.
Right.
You had Herbert going at 6, so I have him going there also. Jeff, what do you think about the pick with Herbert? You think the Chargers go quarterback here? You think it makes sense for them? What's your what temperature are you taking here on the
I
chart?
definitely think quarterback is obviously their next pick, but the question is who are they going to take? And I like him. I like um, shit.
That guy's awesome. No.
Jordan Love.
Well, when you think about their needs, they don't really have needs on the offensive side for playmakers, right? They still were able to keep Hunter Henry on the franchise tag. They've got receivers. They paid Eckler.
Yeah.
No, that's why. No, I think quarterback is the way to go. They're going to be building a brand new franchise. Hopefully, for them, they hope to play in that new stadium, which I don't think they will. But they got a lot of problems, and they need to get a good quarterback now that they've lost their franchise in Phil Rivers.
Yeah, and a lot of their defensive problems have come by way of injury, not by way of talent. Derwin James, other guys have gone down. They've been one of the most injury-plagued teams, in my opinion, in the last 3-4 years. And a lot of their young defensive talent has had trouble staying on the field. So I don't think it's a lack of talent. I think it's just a lack of everything coming together. And it's been a problem for the Chargers. We've been joking about it, before the show. We were talking, kind of joking about the ineptitude of the Chargers. And even when they're good, they're bad. And when they're bad, they're bad. They just can't help themselves with how much talent they have and the numbers they put up. I guess the question for fantasy football is, would you rather it be Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert if you're a guy that's a fan of Austin Eckler, if you're a guy that's a fan of Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry? Which quarterback do you think is the most productive for fantasy football for the other skilled players here? The pick is in, but we have a couple of minutes. So, Mike, which quarterback do you think has better numbers for the skilled players for the Chargers in fantasy football?
That's tough because I'm not a big Tyrod Taylor fan, and last time that we're seeing him in Cleveland getting beat out by a young Baker Mayfield, doesn't do him any favors. I actually remember the game that he came into. It was a Thursday night game, and he was like 2 of 19 for 6 yards or something when he got removed from that game. I mean, just awful. But that being said, we're talking about a rookie quarterback that has a lot of accuracy issues with Justin Herbert. Now, he's a big kid. He can move around, and he's got a strong arm, but there's something going on there with the accuracy that he's definitely got to work on. I would probably say fantasy-wise, you're better off with Tyrod Taylor being under center just because he's a veteran. He's probably going to be able to digest the playbook a little bit quicker. Yeah. We got Justin Herbert, who's coming from a spread offense too. So, it's probably Tyrod Taylor. It's better for fantasy, but that's a tough pick for me.
Jeff, you agree? Think Tyrod Taylor for fantasy?
I agree with Tyrod Taylor. He's gonna just running the football alone, fantasy wise, he's gonna be a better quarterback than.
Well, that's for him. Yeah, that's for him. And I have no doubt that Taylor will be better, as a quarterback, which I don't want to. But I mean for the skill guys. I mean for, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, Austin Eckler.
The pick is
rather have if you're a fan of those guys in fantasy.
The pick is Justin Herbert, quarterback Oregon to Los Angeles.
There we go. Keeping with the status quo so far, pretty much.
Yeah, and that's not normally the case. I mean, normally, I wonder if the
like
doing
the cover band. I'm sorry, I don't think I've ever seen him.
Right. Yeah. I'm wondering if it being a remote draft is maybe. I don't. Do you think that could have any play against some of the curveballs coming?
I think all of it. I think the fact that they didn't get to meet with them, I think, is a bigger factor. But also the fact that they're worried about, possibly mistakes happening. I think all of this leads to just safety, just like it does for most people in all walks of life. Right now, you're just trying to be as cautious as possible and not make a mistake and do the wrong thing, while at the same time trying to do the right thing. And I think you're going to see that here too. And I think you see that, people are doing exactly what people think they need to, filling their biggest needs with the best player available at that need, and that's what we're seeing so far.
I will throw this out here before this pick, because at number 7, we have Carolina. Now, I know they need a good amount of stuff, and they need a good amount of players.
Yep.
But there's a lot of teams out there that really covet C.J. Henderson from Florida, the corner. Don't be surprised if you see them look to trade out of this pick and maybe pick up a little bit of draft capital for somebody that really wants to move up and take C.J. Henderson. And I've heard that the Falcons actually were very interested in moving up. I think that would be a mistake. But again, we might get to see our first trade here even after we started talking about nothing really changing.
Well, if someone moves up here, I mean, you're looking at the top guys that are left, just top guys overall, right? Isaiah Simmons, Derek Brown is still there, Javon
Jerry Jeudy,
Tristan. Well, I don't think Atlanta, definitely, especially Atlanta, going for a wide receiver. Tristan Wirfs. I don't think anybody moving up for a wide receiver in this year's receiver-rich class.
Yeah, agreed.
So with Carolina, the question for me is offensive line or defensive line. I really do think those are the two options for Carolina. They're going to go with a big cornerstone, either lineman on the defensive side or big tackle or guard on the offensive side. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tristan Wirfs go here to Carolina, but we'll see. Jeff, any thought on what you think Carolina should do and what they will do?
I'm thinking they're going to go linebacker in Isaiah Simmons.
That's a good call. Yeah, fill that Luke Kuechly hole, right?
Yeah,
with a very fast and physical guy. Yeah, I mean, makes sense. Sure.
That'd be the kind of guy I think they would target in this pick.
By the way,
trade.
Jeff, you're probably spot on here. That pick came in pretty quick too. The pick is already in for the Panthers.
Yep. Yeah, they saw someone fall and they were like, "All right, lock it down."
Yeah, and again, even though Jim and I, talked about it, and we just brought it up a couple minutes ago about not liking those tweener players. Again, he is a very fast, physical, athletic guy. I mean, I watched him play at Clemson. There's no doubt he's a good football player. I just don't like those guys taken that high in the draft when you don't know.
I think you just put on 15, 20 pounds and become a linebacker. I think that's just it. Call it a day.
Absolutely.
15 pounds of muscle and freaking just go eat shit on people,
Right.
Like, why are you going to play strong safety? I mean, why are you going to back into strong safety? It's one thing if, like, in very specific defensive formations, maybe you fall back because you're the guy that can. That's one thing. But to be kind of penciled in or schemed in as a player that could be a safety as opposed to a linebacker, I think is just silly.
Well, and safety has become a more important position as time has gone on because of all these teams starting to throw the ball more. But the thing is, if you're telling me a guy is a hybrid linebacker safety, that gives me a little bit of pause as to if he can play the deep ball. And then if that's the case, if you're telling me that's how important the safety position is, I mean, and if you're telling me he's a hybrid linebacker safety, you're telling me he's a box safety. I mean, there's a lot of guys that can do that. I don't need to take him in the top 10 if he's just going to be a box safety.
Yeah, you're going to run Henry Ruggs as a third wide receiver and put Isaiah Simmons covering him, out in the open. No.
Right.
I mean, I'm taking the extreme example, a guy running a 4.2 something, but that'll happen. You'll get these slot guys that are fast, and they'll run right by him, in my opinion.
Well, and remember one of the major differences when you get to the NFL as opposed to college. The coaching is different at that level because in college, you can out-talent another team to win a game. At the NFL, you've got to game plan your way to winning. And if you find a way to game plan yourself into having your fastest slot receiver matched up against Isaiah Simmons, who you think he can beat up all day, that's what these guys are going to do all day long. So those are the things to take into account when you're taking a guy like this, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, so in my latest prediction before the pick is in, I actually had them picking Derek Brown. He fell. A lot of people had him going earlier. I mean, he's, number 4.
Yeah.
A lot of people's prospects. Defensive tackle, huge guy out of Auburn. And I thought that was the pick for them if it wasn't offensive line. So we'll see. I think that's the pick for them. They need a lot of things. It's hard to pass on a guy like Isaiah Simmons. But for me, that's a question mark. Derek Brown, unless something weird happens injury-wise, is not a question mark for me.
Yeah, I can see that. Look, I like Derek Brown. I think he's going to be a really solid NFL player. It's surprising to me, honestly, that he stuck around, but I think that speaks to the team needs too. They're targeting the team need and the best player on the board, and he just hasn't fit that need yet. So, I'm not sure. Carolina, what are they running out at defensive tackle right now?
Oh man,
that's a good question.
But here's C-Mac. I just saw CMC, Christian McCaffrey on the screen, and he's looking for an offensive lineman. He'd love Tristan Wirfs.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
Becky Becton. He would love to see that come off the board right now. We'll see if that happens for him. Let's see, what are we looking for? Depth charts? I got you. Let's find the Carolina Panthers depth chart here. We got the pick is in, still no announcement. Who's this guy?
Yeah, Woody Hamilton, Kyle Love, Dontari Poe, who's an animal. So they Kawan Short. So they've got some guys at defensive tackle, and they picked up Gerald McCoy in free agency. I forgot about that. So you've got a good rotation there at defensive tackle. Now the thing about Derek Brown is that he can also play defensive end in rush situations. Now obviously we don't have a lot of those anymore, but he can do that. Selection is coming up, guys.
Yeah.
McCoy. I think Gerald McCoy went to Carolina. I think he went somewhere else.
There it is. Derek Brown, tackle Auburn to the Panthers.
I got a bunch here. I'm nailing it right now. I'm killing it.
There you go.
I'm 1 through 5 right now, or 1 through 6, 1 through 7.
Yeah,
well,
that was 7.
I can pick draft picks, but I cannot count to 7. So.
Oh wow, I didn't know he was from Sugar Hill, Georgia.
They're all from Georgia, bro.
Yeah.
It's the grits, man. The grits do it.
ATL.
So who's on the clock now? Arizona.
Cardinals. Listen, this is obvious offensive lineman, right?
Yeah, they gotta take either Wirfs or Wills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do really like Tristan Wirfs.
Yeah, I do too.
I watched him play quite a bit.
He's one of the corn-fed boys.
Yeah, listen, in Iowa produces some of these guys a lot of times, and he's definitely, I've seen him up against some pretty good pass rushers in the Big Ten, and a lot of times he's taken them out of the game. He can definitely play, and Kyler Murray needs some help there on the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you got Kenyon Drake, you got plenty of weapons on the outside for receivers.
Sure.
You got Hopkins, Fitzgerald, and Christian Kirk has got to be the deadliest 3-pack in the league, right? If you consider all 3 pieces,
right?
I think that's the top 3-piece that there is.
I'm a big Christian Kirk fan. I actually think that his role is going to expand once Larry Fitzgerald basically walks into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So, I think.
Don't forget they've got D-Hop.
Well,
yeah, good call. Yeah.
They got D-Hop.
So fresh.
If you combine all 3 receivers, I think they have the best 1, 2, and 3 with Hopkins, Fitzgerald, and Kirk.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think top
3-pack.
D-Hop and Fitzgerald.
Yeah, that's an embarrassment of riches right there.
Yeah, and Drake, who to be a perfect fit for that offense when he slotted in there, looks to be the perfect fit. So we'll see. Tight end makes no difference to them. Doesn't matter. Plug and play a body. Hopefully they can block well, and that should be it for them. I don't think they need to worry about that. So
I think there's a lot of general managers around the NFL that should count themselves lucky that we were under quarantine when that trade happened. Because I bet there's a lot of quarterbacks around the league that would have walked in that GM's office and punched him right in the face for not stealing D-Hop away from their team.
Is this Jedrick Wills? This is who I picked at number 8. But I'm not sure whose house this is. But I picked Jedrick Wills to the Cardinals. And I don't know if they picked it yet. My volume got up. What's going on here?
The pick is in. So they've already made the selection. It's just they haven't got to it yet. So we've got Arizona, Jacksonville, and Cleveland coming up here. But Arizona's pick is already in, so Jacksonville is probably on the clock already.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, I think it's Jedrick Wills. It could be another offensive lineman, but I think that's the way to go. So, yeah, we'll see. Arizona, fantasy-wise, when you look at Kyler Murray's season last year, there were way too few touchdowns for how many yards and completions he had. And if you believe anything in just natural, positive regression based on just, probability, he's going to be – he was a top 5 quarterback for the first, handful of weeks, 6, 7, 8 weeks. And then he fell back and still ended up as, number 8 or something like that, number 7, 8. And had a bad year considering what he was doing with the football.
Right.
For me, Kyler Murray is next year's Lamar Jackson.
That's a surprise.
Well,
Isaiah Simmons, outside linebacker, Clemson.
So, perfect thing. How do you pass up? If you think he's the best player available, can you pass him up? Now you got to deal with him and Chandler Jones coming at you.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. So
yeah, I think
this is a perfect position. This is a perfect example of taking the best player available over your needs, which I think they should have went off the line.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
So,
do they have another pick in the first round?
Arizona, I don't think so.
No, they don't.
No,
they don't have another pick.
So. All right, guys, I'll be right back. Jacksonville's on the clock. Discuss. No, what's the SNL back? Discuss yourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, Jacksonville. What do you got here, Jeff?
Let me see my list here. Well, everyone that I had slotted is pretty much gone. So, I mean, they could take C.J. Henderson or Wirfs.
Before I leave, I got C.J. Henderson.
You do?
Yep.
Okay. Well, then I'm gonna have to go with C.J. Henderson. He's been spot on. Well, you're 8 for 8. Well, not 8 for 8, but I mean, we all missed the Isaiah Simmons. But it's funny this.
Yeah, they need a lot of help in Jacksonville. Defensively, offensively, I think they're challenged. Honestly, they could go a lot of different ways here. I don't know why they would do this, but if you want to take one of the best players on the board, you could go Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver, maybe to give a little bit more downfield help. But yeah, I think offensive line is probably. I think Tristan Wirfs, that offensive line needs. If you're going to help a quarterback, I don't care if he's a veteran or a rookie, build an offensive line. You have Leonard Fournette. You want to run the ball downhill. Tristan Wirfs is about as good as you're going to get.
Yeah, I agree. You got to build in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. If your quarterback doesn't have time to throw,
right,
you're not going to get there. You're not going to get many offensive points. And if you can't get to the quarterback, they're going to score a lot of points.
Right.
So
so we'll see. It's a little bit of an interesting pick to me, the Isaiah Simmons pick. I just, again, we've talked about it a couple times now. Jim and I just kind of on the same thing about the tweeners. But to his point, you are teaming him up with a guy that gets to the quarterback with pretty good frequency. So, if you have to move him around, you can. Maybe they felt like it was just a good idea to get more athleticism. I will say this, taking a guy like that is kind of a tweener, but he has a lot of athleticism, it reeks of a college coach drafting a guy, which is essentially what Cliff Kingsbury is.
Yeah.
So, he's drafting a lot of guys. I mean, he goes and gets Kyler Murray. I mean, again, I still think the jury's out a little bit on how good he's really going to be. But then taking a guy like this, it's almost like taking a guy that he missed in recruiting on, So we'll see.
It's a little off the subject, but I've noticed every single player's put on their team's hat. Did they ship every potential first round pick 32 hats?
That's a good question. I hope it's not you might have picked up on some scripting there if not,
Yeah, because honestly, this is the first year since the new format of rookie contracts that we haven't seen a trade. I think in the first 10 picks,
Yeah.
9 picks.
I think you're right. Yeah.
We've had year after year after year. We've had a lot of picks.
And I feel that's what I was gonna say. I feel
like
trades. Well, I feel like the last I feel like the last like maybe 2 or 3 years there was multiple trades in the top 10.
Oh, absolutely. Every other, it's like somebody was trading this pick, Goodell would come up. It was
right.
It was happening all the time. And the reason why I noticed is because it never happened.
Right.
Until they changed the rookie contract format, which obviously was holding back. No one wanted that first round pick because it was a death sentence. I mean, Sam Bradford was the last quarterback under the rookie contract, and Cam Newton was the first quarterback under the new contract. And, well, respectively, it was $50 million versus $21 million.
Right, exactly. Massive difference.
$2 million to be exact, $50 million guaranteed. But he ended up making $60+ million off the Rams, and Newton cost them in the rookie contract $21 million.
You're right. Yeah, and yeah, it opens up. I mean, look, people want to see. I think a lot of us that watch the draft, we want to see those trades. You want to see that team jump up and take somebody, or the curveball that you didn't see coming. You want to see that. So it's interesting. I'm hoping that it's not the issue that we're talking about. Some sort of scripting. Although, if you think about it, if you did script it out beforehand, if you got with the teams and you said, "Hey,
who are you going to take?"
Right, we need to know who you're taking so that this goes off without a hitch. Because of the virtual setup, I could understand, but you're also playing it in our face that because we don't know that it happened. So.
Yeah, because honestly, you see when you see these war room break-ins, you always see people on the phone talking to everybody.
Absolutely.
So far, all I've seen are pictures of GM just sitting there,
right,
talking. Nothing's going on. They're not. Obviously, you're there in a room by yourself. You should be talking to somebody about your pick. Who are we going to take, right? But everybody just sitting there like, oh, we already know who we're going to take. I mean, I could totally see them already having this scripted out.
Yeah. But let me find
wait,
out.
Wait, I leave 5 minutes. What are we talking about now? They're about conspiracy theories of the whole draft being already.
Okay. So let me refresh. So I happen to bring up a point real quick that I've noticed that every single player that's been drafted happens to have the team hat that he got drafted by. And I asked Mike, it's like, did they send every top pick 32 hats?
Yes.
So you're on that side of the fence. He said, well, that's a very good point. Maybe they scripted it. And he started talking about, well, you can go back and watch the video.
Earlier about collusion and interference, and this is exactly what I was talking about. Who knows?
Hey,
what level of this draft has been
in the chaos?
Yes. Who knows? So, all right. So the Jags pick is in. We're still waiting. I see you guys went off the rails. So, did we all talked about C.J. Henderson? I talked about him. Jeff, you said that. Mike, let me pull up your picks here. Who did you have picked here for Jacksonville?
That's a good question. I don't have mine in front of me. If you have it,
I got you here. Javon Kinlaw. You had to be going with Javon Kinlaw. Makes sense. They got to rebuild a lot of pieces. Honestly, they let a lot of defensive pieces go in the last season or two. Kinlaw is a defensive lineman, yeah.
Okay, the pick is in. It's C.J. Henderson, corner from Florida. Jim, let me ask you something. Were you in on the NFL scripting conspiracy?
Yeah, no
how you're doing?
Yeah. Right? I can't answer any of those questions.
Yeah, C.J. Henderson. I can tell you guys, as somebody who watches a lot of Florida football, I had the conversation. Jeff, you know Sean very well, another Florida guy. We were kind of talking about it earlier today, and he really obviously had his Florida blinders on and thinks that he's the best corner in the draft. I watched him a lot last year. There's a lot of times I watched him and left the walking away from those games and felt like I was underwhelmed by his performance in big spots. Yep. And I didn't know like how good he really was. So I get it. You need a corner in Jacksonville. He seems like he kind of came on late in this process as one of the guys that everybody really wanted. But again, I'm just not sure how really good he is. I don't know that he'll be a lockdown corner at the next level.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a reach for them, but the need was there with Ramsey and AJ Bouye going out of town. I think they had to make this pick. There's another team that has a lot of needs, so it comes to addressing a big need with maybe the best available. It is a cornerback-rich draft, but after this pick, obviously there are not going to be any of the other top 4 or 5 cornerbacks left when they pick again, probably. So I think this was their chance to solidify that position. That's why I had the pick there. And yeah, I don't love the size. I don't think he's the guy that that is that top paid kind of cornerback that comes out in 4 or 5 years and is going to be top of the market guy. But I think he's going to be a really solid player and a really good cornerback. So,
All right, why don't you give us a rundown of the top 9 picks real quick?
Yeah, so obviously at number 1. We had the Cincinnati Bengals went with Joe Burrow, quarterback. We all expected that. Washington Redskins went with Chase Young, defensive end from Ohio State, with the number 2 pick. Detroit Lions went Jeff Okudah, cornerback, with the number 3 pick. We had the Giants going with Andrew Thomas, offensive lineman from Georgia, with number 4. The Dolphins went as expected with number 5, Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback. Chargers went with Justin Herbert, Oregon quarterback. The Panthers went with defensive tackle Derek Brown. The Cardinals went with linebacker/safety Isaiah Simmons from Clemson. And the Jaguars have now picked cornerback C.J. Henderson from Florida. So this really has
SEC players.
Yeah, it's going to be a good amount. It's going to be a lot, that's for sure. Listen, there's no joke that the SEC produces NFL-ready talent, regularly. There's a reason they get the kind of talent they do, in recruiting classes, and there's a reason why a lot of them are ready to go to the NFL. A lot of it's scheme and just NFL-ready, players. And I don't, watch that much college football, so I guess I'm probably at least, qualified to talk about it.
Well, Mike is here.
Yeah. But, there's always, like they say, there's proof in the pudding, right? I mean, if you keep putting out, NFL-level players at certain positions, just like, who was it, Ohio State keeps putting out.
Wow, that was – I'm sorry to interrupt you guys. That was really fast.
Hold on.
Cleveland Wills, offensive tackle, Alabama.
Cleveland then. Who we got here? All right, so, Mike, you had Tristan Wirfs originally, offensive lineman, who I thought was a great pick. I think they should go offensive lineman here. And I actually went with Tristan Wirfs also. And they went with offensive lineman Jedrick Wills, Alabama, still on the board. I had him going at number 8 to Arizona. He didn't go there. And let's see here. Mike, you had Jedrick Wills falling a little bit here. Oh, no. Trying to find him here. Yeah. Still looking for him, but either way they go. Jedrick Wills, Alabama offensive tackle, big boy here, man.
6'4", 312.
Yeah, and pretty quick on his feet. I saw some highlights of him. We'll see some here actually right now. And for being an inside guy, he can pull. He can really get out there and help with the run game. I think he's going to be a big, big asset for them. I would have thought they would have gone, with Wirfs just because of his skill set specifically, but Nick Chubb is a happy man right now.
Yeah, he's definitely to me he's better in the run game. They're showing a lot of pass protection here in the highlights. I noticed that they showed a couple times against better teams where he got matched up against a linebacker. One time was Keith Murray against Oklahoma. The other time was somebody from what we consider a lower tier football school. Couldn't tell who that was right away. It looked like somebody from a weaker conference, out of conference game. But one of the main problems I had with him, the reason I had him dropping, is if you notice in that, and they just showed it actually, and because he's a bigger guy and he just kind of engulfs that player, Keith Murray, Keith Murray beat him off the ball and he had him beat. That at the NFL level, these guys have a lot more moves, can really confuse young offensive linemen, especially the veterans that are around. And especially when you get into the speed rushers in the NFL, guys like Von Miller and guys like that can really be a handful. So that's kind of my fear with a guy like that. I'm not quite sure how to look at his footwork. And again, the reason that we have so many issues with some of these guys that come out of Alabama and places like that when they get to the NFL is because they're playing on a team with the best talent around. They get to the NFL and their flaws get exposed because that guy standing next to him isn't an all-pro. The guy standing next to him might not be that good and might not be at a level to cover up his mistakes. That's why
the train is not stopping here. I mean, we still have 2 receivers and Trayvon Diggs to come out of Alabama in the first round.
Let me put it to you like this. Alabama last year had a not a very good defense by their standards. They lost Dylan Moses before the season, or right at the early part of the season, to a season-ending injury. He's one of their linebacker kind of linchpins. But their main issue that they had was they were giving up a lot of pass yards. And I mean, especially when they ran up against better offenses, they were giving up a lot of yards through the air. Explain to me then why I want anybody off that defensive secondary. That's getting torched by good talent.
I think a lot of times, your 5-star
talent,
you're highly touted out of high school. You're a 5-star recruit, so you still have a little bit of that weight, and then you win championships, and that happens. Yeah, and then you're to see 5, 6, Xavier McKinney, another first rounder, probably from Alabama. So we'll see what happens with those. I want to move.